欢迎各位，欢迎各位啊！各位可以看到吗？银卡二群，会员，哎，视频号，来，各位好，各位好，欢迎大家。哟，这么多朋友都在啊，欢迎各位啊！可以听到吗？好嘞。哎，欢迎大家。YouTube、腾讯会议、小鹅通。来，今天咱们一起来看英伟达的财报啊。欢迎大家，欢迎大家。Moment of truth， 咋了？哎呀，这么严重啊？啊？这 moment of truth 了。来，欢迎欢迎欢迎！啊，哎，等等啊。所以我今天劝那位朋友嘛，对吧？到了财报日了就别去赌了，这确实比较危险。来，欢迎大家。哎，稍等各位，先赞后看，谢谢谢谢谢谢。英伟达，哎呦，218，涨了4%啊，不高啊，不高不高不高，不够啊，英伟达这个力度不够啊，涨了4%，二季度速览大幅超预期，我靠，看看有没有，哎呦，有多少超预期啊，大哥，稍等啊。哎呀，哎呀，稍等我一下。 218远远的不够，远远的不够啊！哎，欢迎大家，欢迎大家。看看数据啊，营收962亿，哎呀，好可惜啊，没有突破1000亿啊，果然还是没突破。哎呦 ，EPS 2.22美元，很好。数据中心同比增长超过预期890亿，原先预期858亿，毛利率75%，这一点尤其重要。数据非常好，非常好啊。然后3季度营收的指引是1080亿，高于华尔街预期1042亿。哎呀，好可惜，没有收到英伟达这个突破1000亿的好消息啊，有点可惜的。来，欢迎大家，欢迎大家。一会儿看看新闻发布会会有什么新的动态啊？我以为期望值还是蛮高的。来，现在是218，涨了4%啊，这不够啊。看看219了快。啊，希望英伟达能够尽快突破220啊！还指望着他这次财报能够冲上230、240呢，这个不够的，也不足以引导整个大盘冲历史高点。数据非常好，哎，数据是很不错的。给力啊，965亿啊！看看一会儿黄老板的新闻发布会能有什么新的这个消息透出来。 哎，欢迎大家，欢迎大家。嗯，嗨，预期强劲可不意味着一定会涨啊。欢迎各位啊。下期指引不是早就超1000亿了，下期指引原先是1040亿，现在上调了1060多亿了。但是这个市场你知道吧，对吧？绝对不会让你停下来的，总有一个指标要你玩命去够啊。227要回来了，也行吧，反正英伟达你是不用担心的，好吧？不用担心，不用担心啊！欢迎各位，哎，欢迎各位加入我们，哎，来216啊，这市场简直疯了，早就对 Dicky 早就说了，就去年的指引给出来都是超过1000亿，哎，好好好，欢迎各位，欢迎各位啊！不给力，不给力，现在数据不给力呀、我是说涨幅不给力啊，人家的财报已经非常好了啊。一会儿我们来听一听这个黄老板的财报啊，欢迎各位，欢迎各位关注啊。嗯，呃，哎呀，但是总体啊，对于整个的人工智能赛道来说，已经是非常好的一个数据了，好吧？可以的，英伟达可以的。现在是多少？216，肯定今天这个量要疯啊！没有一个指标是不行的，应该说整体就都很强。看看咱们听一听达克怎么说啊。
To exclusively host NVIDIA Compute at their Portsmouth campus. The initial deployment expected to support 4.25 gigawatts of AI could represent approximately 1.5 million NVIDIA GPUs. And over 20 years, the site could support multiple upgrade cycles. Here's the essential economic point. The LPS commitment secures a long-lived AI factory site, while the NVIDIA compute within the data center can be upgraded repeatedly. This project deepens our long-standing partnership with OpenAI. OpenAI has committed to substantially deployments of NVIDIA AI infrastructure through 2030.
来，欢迎各位。
OpenAI's existing and planned commitments represent approximately 12 gigawatts of NVIDIA compute. For another frontier AI lab, we will provide selective credit enhancement for nearly 2 gigawatts of compute. This complements the substantial NVIDIA compute capacity they've secured independently without NVIDIA's credit support. We recognize the scale of this support, and we know some will call this circular
各位可以
financing.
看得到吧？
We see it differently. We're going through a major computing platform shift, the creation of one of the most important technologies in human history, and these are once-in-a-generation companies. Their technology leadership is proven, and their customer traction and usage are skyrocketing. We expect them to become the largest technology companies in history. We believe these investments measured against the strength of their demand, the business they create for us, the ecosystem they build on NVIDIA's platform, and the equity returns on our invested capital will be excellent. And our risk is limited. The NVIDIA compute platform is fungible and durable and can be redeployed to support other customers. For context, we expect demand from the AI labs for which we expect to leverage our balance sheet to contribute toward roughly a quarter of our business next year. This remains compute we ship will be consumed by investment-grade customers or those that are backed by one. In Q2, we shipped less than 1% of our total data center revenue in Hopper 200 products to customers based in China, in accordance with the U.S. government.
下一个财报季的数据并没有包括中国的数据。
And given ongoing geopolitical uncertainty, there is no China data center compute revenue in our forward outlook.
所以说，对，没有包括，差
Moving to the rest of the gap,
完全被抹掉了。
75%, largely unchanged from last quarter due to a similar product mix. GAAP and non-GAAP operating expenses were up 10% and 11% sequentially, primarily due to high compute infrastructure costs and compensation and benefits costs. Our non-GAAP
不可能加了，
tax rate
那个是在几号啊？
primarily due to higher
周几？
On our balance
周5啊，发布
inventory
会。
increased to $32 billion as we prepare for the Vera Rubin launch.
对，是的，
Days
是
of
的，是的。
sales outstanding increased to 60 days, reflecting extended
哎呀，
payment
加油啊，达
terms
哥！
for purchases
达哥
by
加
certain
油！
investment-grade customers to be shipped over multiple quarters. In Q2, we returned a record $26 billion to shareholders, $20 billion through share repurchases, and $6 billion through our quarterly dividend of 25 cents per share. Relative to our plan to return 50% or more of free cash flow, we returned 60% on a year-to-date basis. And going forward, we intend to increase and return excess free cash flow net of strategic uses. Let me turn to the outlook for the third quarter. Total revenue is expected to be $108 billion, plus or minus 2%. We expect sequential growth to be driven primarily by ACI&E with data center, while growth in hyperscale is expected to re-accelerate in Q4 and into fiscal year 28 as supply of Vera Rubin grows over time. We see Vera Rubin accounting for about 20% of data center revenue in Q3. Looking ahead, our preliminary expectation is for fiscal year 28 revenue to grow approximately 70% year over year. Although we will work to close the supply-demand gap, we expect supply to remain a bottleneck at least through the end of fiscal year 28.
现在是
Many of you have expressed concerns regarding our gross margins as component costs have risen significantly. As you are already aware, we are experiencing extreme pricing conditions in memory. The magnitude of the price increase has exceeded our
有人说205上车，218跑了。
even higher into next year.
真
As a
行。
result, we are resetting expectations today. For Q3, we expect GAAP and non-GAAP gross margins to be
各位可以听到吧？
plus or minus 50 basis points. We expect margins to bottom in Q4 in the 71 to 72% range
哇，
before settling at 72 to 73% in fiscal year 28 as executed price increases take effect in Q1. We want to be direct about this rather than let it linger as an open question. Memory scarcity today is being driven in large part by the AI build-out itself, and unlike a component that simply raises our cost with no offset benefit. Tighter memory supply is a symptom of the same demand surge that's driving our own growth. We have long-standing, deep relationships with all three major memory suppliers, and we're working closely with them to further increase the capacity our roadmap requires. GAAP and non-GAAP operating expenses are expected to be approximately $9.2 billion and $9.0 billion, respectively. For the full year, we now expect OPEX to grow in the low 50s, driven by a broadening of our product portfolio and further increase in the usage of AI tools, which is already and will continue to enhance engineering productivity. For full year, fiscal year 27, we continue to expect GAAP and non-GAAP tax rates to be between 16 and 18%, excluding any discrete items and material changes to our tax environment. With that, we will now transition to Q&A. Operator, please poll for questions.
欢迎各位啊，欢迎欢迎欢迎。
At this time, I would like to remind everyone, in order to ask a question, press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad.
现在这直接听的就是达子的现场发布会。
Your first question comes from the line of Joseph Moore with Morgan Stanley. Your line is open.
摩根士丹利的问题，
Great, thank you.
我觉得可以啊，
I wonder if you could give us
稳多了，稳
color
多。
on 70%, and what gives you the confidence to guide a full year out? You haven't been doing that. And then what's the gap between that amount of growth and the 100% demand growth? You know, what is the kind of key constraint that separates those numbers, and could you close those gaps over time?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. As you probably are aware, AI has become useful.
AI become
And
useful.
the
黄老板说
AI
的很
agents
实在啊。
that are being adopted everywhere use an enormous amount of compute. First of all, the large language models are larger than ever because they're smarter than ever. And these agents go through reasoning and planning, multiple terms of tool use. The amount of compute necessary for an agent versus a human using it is probably 15 to 100 times, depending on the type of problem you're trying to solve. And so the amount of compute necessary is just extraordinary. That's a factor that almost everybody sees. The part that people don't see about our growth, because we're practically singular because of the nature of how we deliver products. I mean, we're the only company in the world that creates and builds, offers an entire AI factory platform, a full stack system. And, you know, customers can still mix and match. However,
迪肯你也太那个啥，
most
对不对？
companies just don't have the skills to do that or desire to.
我觉得现在可以
And so there's an entire part of the market that we experience growth.
啊，
There's sovereign
对
AI,
吧？
the
数
regional
据
AIs,
很
the
好
neo
啊，
clouds,
又不算
AI
高，
startups and enterprises,
其实
where
比
we're seeing
今天上午要好，
which represents about
安
half of our
全性
business,
高很多。
and that's growing 100% a year. That part of the world's computing is likely to be larger over time than even what we're currently experiencing in the cloud. And so, so I think the demand that we see is driven by all of those factors. It is also the case that you can no longer procure technology per se and stand up these infrastructure. You've got to go secure the land, power, and shell, which, you know, oftentimes is a couple, 2-3 years out. All of the rest of the supply chain necessary to align the construction, the power, the cooling, all of the labor that's necessary.
他讲到
AI
了整个
infrastructure
达
is
子的
creating
生
so
态
many
系统，
jobs all over the United
对吧？
States
尤其是电力
and all around the world.
是个大缺口
It。just takes a lot more planning. And so we're involved in securing infrastructure now, further down the pipeline. Just as a long time ago, people asked me, why is it that we're working with memory suppliers when we're a chip company? And today people understand it's really quite genius that we were working on our supply chain so far upstream. We work with power generator companies. Downstream, we work with land power and shell companies all around the world, and that helps prepare all of this computing that's going to be built that will ultimately be deployed for our ecosystem and our customers. And so we just have a lot greater visibility now
这份数
upstream
据
and
非常
downstream.
好了。
It is the case that we've never forecasted or never guided to a year in advance, and even though our demand is much greater than 70%,
它的 Very Rubin 已经
our
起
supply
来了，
allows us to
新的啊
confidently deliver 70%.
Blackwell 的下一
And we're
代。
going to continue to work with our supply chain to increase on that. But what we wanted to do is to be consistent with everybody, from our customers, our shareholders, our supply chain. Everybody sees the same view. And the reason why that's important is because everybody's putting a lot of resources at play. And so we wanted to make sure that everybody has the same set of information. And we've got a huge year coming up next year, and it's going to be pretty extraordinary.
Your next question comes from the line of CJ Muse with Cantor Fitzgerald. Your line is open.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for taking the question. There's tremendous investor focus on your inference market share. Can you speak to the evolving workloads you're seeing with agentic AI and how you see your share evolving over time, particularly when you reflect on the growing value of the TAM you're seeing with these full-stack generation, your expectations of greater growth of ACIE, and then also including Grok 3 LPX.
这个不能这么想。
Yeah, thanks, CJ. The AI life cycle is getting way more complex than it used to be, and it's playing into NVIDIA's architecture much more greatly than it used to be. And so you could kind of see it as 4 phases. There's the first phase, which is preparing all of the data that you need. Some of it is synthetic, some of it is real, some of it is human labor and human labeled and generated. Pre-train the models, and then there's post-train, the third phase, and then there's the agentic inference.
它的周
And
边
agentic inference is extremely complicated.
NOK 也上来
And
了，
so every one of those phases are complicated.
还是不错
The
的
thing
啊。
that's really great about the NVIDIA architecture, and we created this with NVLink 72. It was a
Intel、
big surprise
TSM
on the world when we first created the world's first rack scale architecture. It was hardly easy, and it was very challenging building the first generation, now our third generation of NVLink 72 rack scale systems. We had to reinvent the entire supply chain, reinvent systems, reinvent the technology, redistribute our software, refactor our software, everything, every aspect of
全面
it.
上来了。
But what it allowed us to do was to create one fungible system.
达子果然是发动机啊！
Data creation, data preparation, the pre-training, the post-training, to agentic inference. The benefits to customers is incredible, and the reason for that is because you just and we just mentioned each gigawatt of technology and NVIDIA's revenue exposure in the Hopper timeframe with Hopper plus InfiniBand, and now Vera Rubin and CPU and 3 types of different networking, because it takes that many types of networking to address the entire data center, not to mention the scale-in security networking and the scale-across multi-campus networking. So you could argue 5 different types of networking systems, and then of course Grok.
好遗憾，海工跟我错过了。
And all of that increased our revenue contribution or revenue opportunity per gigawatt to $40 billion. So each gigawatt of data center increased from, say, $30 billion about 5 years ago to now $60 billion today. Of course, the productivity is tremendous. The performance is incredible. in
海公
comparison.
共上
But
来
you're
了，
talking about a
将近
$60
4个
billion
点，
investment.
都是将近4个点，存储
To
今
the
年反
extent
倒
that
最
you
猛。
could use it across multiple phases of the AI life cycle, run every single type of model you can imagine running on it, whether it's diffusion or autoregressive or state space or some hybrid version of that, every version of attention mechanism you can think of, small or large models, the investment that you make will be preserved and useful and productive for a lot longer time. And so I think our advantage in this new world is really quite extraordinary, and it could explain, why it is that our growth is actually accelerating. It was already large, but now it's accelerating. Let's see, you asked about Grok. I was super excited about Grok 3. We achieved a record token interactivity rate, extremely low latency performance generation. The team is doing fantastically. We spent the last several months fusing the NVLink architecture, which will be the core, and that'll be the core engine. And then for services that would like to have super high
哦，那潘达，
interactivity,
你的位置
super
非
high
常好。
speed token
海
generation,
公共我一直等130没等
the
着，
throughput is going to be a lot lower.
没等着啊，
The cost per
130没
token
等
will
着
be。higher, but you could associate it with high ASP services. And so for those companies, you could bolt on one of our Grok accelerators. I'm super excited about that. But the vast majority of the world's data centers will just be Vera Rubin NVLink 72.
很好，现在210快
Your next
220了。
question comes from the line of Stacy Rasgon with Bernstein Research. Your line is open.
Hi guys, thanks for taking my questions. So the 70% growth in fiscal 28, which I guess is sort of calendar 27, that's something like, I don't know, a $200 billion uptick versus the prior outlook if I back it up. The prior outlook was $1 trillion over the 3 years, so this is probably $200 billion more. I was just wondering if you could talk us through the contributors to that increase across the different products, the Vera and CPUs and Grok and everything else. And also, you talked about your price increase.
我斯坦的人在问啊，说达子以前说过，
is pricing. I guess I'm also curious.
2027到1万亿，现在看起来整个的预期超预期啊，所以说问为什么会是这个样子呢？到底主要贡献来自于哪？
The unconstrained would be a lot higher. It's we grew 100% year over year this year.
来，欢迎各位关注啊！欢迎各位关注。
is significant, and so we're just going to have to go work hard to get more capacity, and we have a large supply chain. We have a really gigantic supply chain, and so we have incredible partners, and we secured a lot of supply, but we just need a lot more. To break it down, the way to think about that is most people see just hyperscale.
然后1周时间再开
That's
始
half
当，
of the that's
所
half
以
of
说
the
啊，也
picture.
别太乐观。
The other half of the picture is what we call AC, and that's all the enterprise, the neo clouds, the sovereign AIs. That part of the world is invisible to everybody, and the reason for that is because they don't buy custom chips. They don't buy chips one at a time. They really need an entire factory platform built for them, and so that's a space that we add just a tremendous amount of value. Now, of course, back in this hyperscale space, that's growing incredibly too, right? You know that they now have backlogs of $2 trillion. You know that when they stand up NVIDIA compute,
我觉得现在
when
是
that
好机会。
happens, their revenues go up, their earnings
欢迎各位关
contribution
注
go
啊
up.！
欢迎各位关注啊！
Compute is
欢迎各位
profitable, very profitable today,
对，
and
没错。
compute directly translates into
看
increased
看
revenues.
你的做法
And
跟
so
我一
there's
样。
just a race to want to bring more NVIDIA compute online, both at the hyperscalers, but what you don't see is just really tremendous opportunities outside the hyperscalers. But the other part of it is the reason why we mapped it out for you. In the case of Hopper, we were at about 18 billion per gigawatt. For Grace Blackwell, we're about 25 billion per gigawatt. And for Vera Rubin, it's about 40 billion per gigawatt. And and the productivity is, X factors increase in each generation. And so customers want to race to the next generation as fast as they can. Meanwhile, because NVIDIA's compute is so productive, the tokens they're generating, the GPU hours they're renting out is insanely profitable, as you know. Their margins are fantastic. And so
margins are fantastic.
So all of that is just simultaneously happening. I think the big picture is that we're going through this platform shift, and it affects every computer company, and every industry in the world uses computers. So therefore, every industry is affected, every company is affected, and this new way of doing computing is intelligent. It's not based on retrieval of files, but it's now generating intelligence, and that requires compute. But the results you get is
咱们国内的那些所
the
谓的
results you get is tremendously better.
专家们也应该出来抖抖是吧？
We're just
看
seeing
看
that
人家做到
across
什
the
么程度了。
Everybody wants to be part of the AI revolution. Everybody will have to be part of this computing shift, and everybody has to build infrastructure.
Your next question comes from the line of Vivek Arya with Bank of America Securities. Your line is open.
哎，Thomas，
my question.
你拿的是多少啊？你能告诉我吗？
Transparency in all the commitments and guarantees that you have for a number of years. When I just add up everything that's in this case.
要看看你的这个昨天入的，哦，那还行啊，那还行，我觉得你今天就可以撤。哇塞，恭喜恭喜，恭喜 Thomas 啊！恭喜，可以。昨天入的，那今天应该是不错的。
Secondly, if there is a specific cash, part of
欢迎各位关注啊。
we should think about in fiscal 28. And then, just in a lot of these investments are,
所以今天很受益的实际上是存储赛道，这是以前没有过的。
But both of them are designing their own.
230到240需要时间，
in the last few days,
需要时间。
Arsenio and their claims about being better than Blackwell and so forth. So how are you balancing this dynamic where you want to invest a lot of the ecosystem?
因为你是2x 嘛，对不对？所以说我不建议你长拿啊。如果是正常的，你就比 regular share 就没有必要走了。
Many of these XPUs are inference-specific chips for one
用于推理的芯
for
片
one service.
啊
NVIDIA is
，inference-specific
a
chips。
platform, an entire AI factory platform that spans the entire AI lifecycle that you can use.
整个 AI 的生态系统。
It's in every cloud. You can run anywhere. We'll help you set it up anywhere.
黄仁勋一直给出来的这个他们的
So we
slogan
built
就
something very
是
different.
叫什么？
All of the AI services
所有的生
at
态
some
都
point
可以在英伟达
are
上。
going to want to go around the world, and those data centers won't necessarily
AI
be
is
just built by
everywhere.
them. And also, I fully expect,
可以。
and so they're going to run, and I think they're going to run on NVIDIA
来，欢迎各位
all
关
around
注
the
啊！
world, and of course, I think our technology. I have 100% confidence that our technology
哎，
will
坚
continue
守
to be
科技，
extraordinary
谢
for
谢
them.
欢迎欢迎。
And that the economics of using our technology, whether it's from data processing to training to post-training to agentic processing, our technology is going to be extraordinary for them. They're going to use it. And so I'm very confident that they're going to be customers and partners of ours for a very long time. Now, having said that, taking a step backwards, investing in these two companies, or there are several AI labs that we've invested in, investing in these companies are once in a generation opportunity. I think the only regret that I have is that I didn't invest more and sooner. And two of the companies will likely go public soon, and others will follow. And these will be some of the most consequential technology companies in history. And so I'm delighted to be their friend. I'm delighted to partner with them. I'm delighted that they're building an ecosystem on top of the NVIDIA architecture. I'm delighted that they're counting on us to scale up, and I have 100% confidence that through quite a long period of time, they're going to be utilizing NVIDIA compute for a lot of their computing. And so I feel great about it.
So Vivek, let me add a little bit more regarding the commitments and the portion within those commitments, which is our supply commitments. This is essential. This is essential for the raising of your Rubin today, as well as all next year. You can see that those commitments, the biggest parts of them are in the first 3 years, and we will use that to build the products that we need. This would also gives us the confidence in terms of our growth and revenue.
现在英伟达已经从 Blackwell 要向 Very Rubin 去
as well as capacity
升级了
that we need.
啊。
Your next question comes from the line of Timothy Arcuri with UBS. Your line is open.
Hi, thanks a lot. Jensen, I want to ask about open source. There's a lot of talk about that these models could gain share for workload in the U.S. You're obviously well positioned with Nemotron, but on the other hand, a lot of the end demand is being driven by these big frontier model companies. So there's a lot of investors that equate open models
现在不上来了吗？叶
for the
子，
growth of those companies. So how do you sort
现在
of
219了。
do you see the rise of open models as being good for NVIDIA or ultimately negative? Thanks.
The world will need both closed models and open models. And both closed models and open models are skyrocketing in use. I would say nearly all open models run on NVIDIA. And the reason for that is because NVIDIA's footprint around the world
看看现在
is the highest.
219，对，
And our architecture is the most fungible. It's everywhere.
来
It's in
欢迎各位，欢迎各位。
PCs and edge devices like DGX Spark, which is doing great, all the way to robots and workstations and your on-prem data centers. Open models are doing incredibly well. Closed models we know are doing incredibly well.
哎，
The Frontier Labs, their sales are skyrocketing. Their margins are fantastic. They're generating profitable tokens. They're only limited by the amount of compute. That is equally true for open models. And our position in open models is very good, because the CUDA ecosystem is literally everywhere. The open models are also
开放式的模型
to just about every AI startup
整
and
个的
every enterprise
基础，
company around
好
the
吧？
world.
它
It's vital to
英伟达其实最
And
强
the
的是
reason
它
for
的
that is
CUDA，CUDA
because you should rent
是
intelligence,
它真正的护城河，
strong
整个
intelligence,
的
smart intelligence,
英伟达的生
which
态
is。the reason why we rent it. And I encourage my employees to use the cloud services as much as they can. But every major company and surely every country and every startup needs to build their domain specific, their proprietary AI, their proprietary alpha. And the open models reaching frontier levels has made it possible, has enabled them to all do that. One of the areas where frontier models is vital is cybersecurity. You see the number of cybersecurity companies that are enabled by frontier models so that they could have massively distributed, continuously running autonomous cybersecurity systems to defend. Those companies are emerging. There's some amazing companies. They couldn't do it without open models. And so open models is both incredibly successful and has finally reached the frontier, but it's also vital to the American economy. It's vital to the world economy. It's vital
说到
to
整
companies to build their own
黄老板说
proprietary
整体
AI.
的这
You
个
can't do
open
without
model
one or the other.
开放式模
Both
型，
are going
对吧？
to
对
be
于
extraordinarily
整体
successful.
的经济、整个世界的经济都是有帮助。
And lastly, as you know, our market footprint of all
As
AI
Rocket.
models, we're the only
这个绝对行，我跟你说，10月
we're
份
the only platform that runs every
，S Rocket
frontier.
是10月份，
And whether it's
好吧？
closed
我们
or
就等着10月份看看 S Rocket
most of
能
them were built on
有什么
NVIDIA.
样的惊
And so
艳
they
的
run
表
on-
演
they run
表
great
演
on NVIDIA. And so we're delighted by any model succeeding so long as models succeed.
我认为 S Rocket 应该会比
And both closed and open
SpaceX
models
还要猛。
succeed. And they're both simultaneously driving our sales.
Your next question comes from the line of Ben Bryces with Melius Research. Your line is open.
Yeah, hey, thanks. I wanted to ask you a question, Jensen, about demand in a different way. You talked about demand growing 100% next year, and I wanted to kind of get a sense for a couple things driving that, and even beyond that. And there's two concepts here. There's recursive self-improvement,
黄老板说，明年的需
which
求
apparently
会
Anthropic and OpenAI is
会
doing very
增
well.
长1倍啊，
AI that improves itself, and even OpenAI
仍然是
said
一个
they
大
should
的
hit
增量市
AGI
场。
by the end of this year.
来，欢迎各位关注，欢迎
And,
各位关注。
with the developments in RSI as well as AGI, what happens to industry demand? Does it inflect further? And what does it mean for NVIDIA when those things take place? And how are you looking at that as a demand catalyst? Thanks.
I appreciate that. It's going to inflect further. Today, the vast majority of AI is prompted by people. I believe that this last month it has crossed. Most AI are now agentic, but in the future, every company will have a whole bunch of agents. We have
今天看来
40,000
也就
employees
今
roughly.
天应该
In
就
the
是
future,
在
we'll have
220了
400,000 agents, 4 million agents.
，220
And
了。
those agents are running continuously. They're running in the background. If you have anybody who builds, if you know anybody who builds edge, personal AI agents, and they run it under
哎
like a
欢迎各位
DJI
关注，
Spark,
谢谢关注啊！
and I know a lot of people who
10月份的
are
Anthropic
running
一
on
定要
DJI
参与，
stations.
绝
It's
对
incredible
是热
workstation
点。
that we built, and you can buy it from Dell, and they're incredible. And these AI agents running on a DJI station runs 24/7 because you got stuff for it to do all the time. And so when the world goes to fully agentic systems, you're going to have agents running all the time, working with
是
other agents.
黄
running
仁
all the
勋
time.
的演讲
And
其
those
实
are
比
working in
马
the
斯克要
background,
强
improving your
太多
company,
了。
improving your lives. In a lot of ways, we're kind of recursive
黄翔说的太有道
at
理，
this point.
非
And you
常
could
清
argue
晰
it's coarse grained, but every time you run through an agent, it,
啊！一听
it
就是
reflects
优
on
等
how it
生
could
的
do a
感
better
觉啊
job。next time.
有时候马斯克讲话，你都觉得他是
And
不是有
so
点晕
the？skills document,
你
the
懂吗？
markdown, is updated at the end
220
of
了
one of them.
啊，
And so
不错
next
不
time
错
you。run it, it's going to get better. It's a kind of a loosely coarse grained self improvement. And so you see that all over always. And so in a lot of ways, and for many tasks, we could say that we've already achieved AGI. I think all of those milestones and all those,
哎，
they're kind of senseless at this point. I think the most important thing that
220
matters for the industry is that one, AI is now doing productive and useful work. Two, AI is generating profitable tokens. And three, if
profitable
we have more
tokens，好吧，
compute,
这点
we
很
could
重要。
generate more profitable
可
tokens,
以盈
which
利的
results in more
token。
profit for all of the services.
哎，token 现在
This
我
is
怎
the
么翻
exact
啊？
phase where we're at, which is the reason why everybody's
我看好多争议啊，token 怎么翻？
Your next question comes from
我
the
看我们
line
国
of
内说要叫
Daniel
什么
Snyder
次
with
元
Goldman
是吧？
Sachs. Your line is open.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking my question. If you
Go,
think
Sheldon.
about the 100% growth you talked about in terms of the unconstrained demand growth, you're expecting the 70% you expect to fulfill in terms of supply. Can you maybe talk about some of the, or rank order, some of the most
对，
acute constraints, whether that be things like data center power and shell availability, DRAM, wafer foundry,
黄仁勋说明年
availability,
要
etc.
市场
If
增
you
长
could maybe help
100%，
us
但是他们
understand
只有70%的
which
流
are
量
the。biggest among those, that would be very helpful.
所以说这个人就问词源是吧？对，我记得现在被翻成
There's
词源啊。
something funny I could say, but I'm going to just not. The
英伟达的这
you know,
个
last year
瓶颈还
one of the funnest
还
things to
是
do
供应链。
is just to go figure out where I go for dinner and who I have dinner with, and their stock price doubles the next day. I think the answer is
台
our
积
entire
电
supply chain is changed,
TSM 上来了，
and it's everybody is really running
424了，哇，太爽了。
and
不
more
错，
capacity is
表
coming
现非
online
常好。
all the time, which is one of the advantages. What's going to happen this year? It's not going to come online in just an instance in time, but it's going to come online every day.
欢迎各位关注。
Yields are going to get improved.
对的，
we're going to be doing
对的，
yield.
今天存储非常
We're
猛
going to work hard on working
存储
with
非
every
常
one
猛。
of our suppliers.
哎呀，
You
黄
know,
老板
and
牛
so
啊，真不容易啊，能交出这样的答卷。
it's not even next year yet, and so we've got lots and lots of time to work hard every day. And so at this moment, we have supply for 70%. We have more supply than 70%, but about 70%. Our demand is much higher than that. And
他们的
we've
需
got to
求
go
远
work hard.
超他们现在的供应能量，供应能力，好吧？
We're going to
219啊，不
supporting
对
customers.
，219，那个他们只能满足 70%。
we like not to disappoint our customers, and we like to work hard for them. And so I'm going to need the help of the entire supply chain to help me out here. But they all know that. What I'm telling you about our needs for next year is exactly consistent with what I've told them. Everybody's on the exact same song sheet, and I'm trying to be as transparent as we can because we're talking about big numbers.
Your final question comes from the line of Aaron Rakers with Wells Fargo. Your line is open.
最后一个问题了，朋友们。
Yeah, thanks for taking the question. I want to go back to the gigawatts, the 25 to 40, and maybe try and understand, like, I think Jensen, you said at some recent conferences that, that's going to further scale. So, if we think about the path even beyond Vera Rubin,
感谢各位来参加直播的朋友啊，大家挺不容易的。
like, should we really conceptualize like 40 billion goes to 60 billion, 80 billion, and then, I guess, underneath of that question is how do we kind of think about your ability to scale the capacity deployment? Is it a linear function, or is there something that, kind of unlocks your ability to supply more demand as we look through fiscal 27?
Great question.
28, sorry.
那个沃什的讲话是星期五，应该不是明天吧？
Very simple.
应
Is
该
our
星期
goal
五
to
吧？
put as much compute
我没记错吧？
on the plot of land? Is our goal to put more compute into 1 gigawatt or less? And so obviously, we would like the speed of light answer. The perfect answer is actually
欢迎各位关注
infinity
啊！
per gigawatt. And so if we could literally get $1 trillion of compute into 1 gigawatt and one piece of land power shell, it
哦，
would be
明
a
天星期五啊
fantastic
不是
outcome.
美东时间星期五上午的11点吧？
Directionally in that direction. We
各位
started
国内的
in
应
the
该
world
是
of
周六
general
的
purpose computing
周
during
六
Moore's
的
law.
哎，
We were probably
周五的晚
pick
上
your favorite number, but
哦
I'm
对
going to go with something like
坏了
$5
坏了
billion,
我也
$10
乱
billion
我也
per
乱
gigawatt of compute with general purpose computing, and then eventually with Hopper it was 18. Now Grace Blackwell is 25. Next
我觉
year
得
we're
加
going
息
to
概率不
40,
大，
and after that it's going to be higher.
可以明天减，
That's-
可以明天减。
That's fantastic for the industry. It's fantastic for
看看啊
customers. So long as the productivity of it continues to grow, the durability and the fungibility continues to grow, then people are happy to invest in assets that generate
8月
revenue,
28日
generate
上午
profits,
10
and
点，
helps them recoup their returns. So
就
it's
是
very
星
fast.
期五的上午10点，各位的北
That
京时间
return on
星期五的
investment
晚
capital
上
is
10点。
now less than a year.
我们接着直播。
And we're talking about $50 billion data centers. And so that tells you something about
我觉得不太会加的。
the
星期五啊，
productivity
我们接着
of
直
the
播啊
latest，technology
沃什的
and
演讲
rentability of it.
非常重
I
要的
want
演
to
讲。
thank all of you for joining us today.
哦，结束了。哎呀，真准时啊！哎，我觉得这是不是经过
There
排
are
练
no
了？
further questions at this
正
time.
好
I'll
15
turn the
点，
call back over to you.
1分钟都不
Thank
差
you.
嘛！我
Before
操
we close, please note that Jensen will be participating in a keynote fireside chat at the Goldman Sachs Communicopia and Technology Conference in San Francisco on September 10th. He'll also be giving a keynote at GTC Berlin on
9
October
月10号
21st.
啊，这
Our
个
earnings
谁
call
呀、
to discuss the results of our
黄老
third
板
quarter
要
fiscal
去参
2027
加
is
Goldman
scheduled
Sachs
for
的一个
November
大会，
17th.
10月21日柏林 GTC 大会演讲，10月17日财报电话会。
This
哇
concludes
11月
today's
17
conference
啊，
call. You
都
may
已经
now
把时间给
disconnect.
列出来了，朋友们。我们等着直播吧啊！哇，他们这个这么准时吗？1分钟都不差，就结束了啊！哈哈哈，牛牛牛牛啊！我怎么觉得都像排练的呢？好了，朋友们，已经播完了 啊，电话会结束，很不错啊。再说一遍，大幅各项数字大幅超预期，好吧？啊，我觉得给了整个无论如何啊，具体表现咱不说，给了整个市场以巨大的支撑啊。人家说了，对吧？明年100%增长，我们只能满足70%啊。你想想多给力啊！太牛了，太牛了！哇，黄老板绝对行，黄老板，对吧？那个英语标准度那比马斯克强多了。哎呦妈呀，每次马斯克新闻发布会听得你简直快死掉的心都有啊！黄老板还是讲的非常清晰的，对。再一个就是那个 Tesla 的那个 CFO 应该是个印度人吧？妈呀，那更恐怖啊！他讲话我基本都属于，我的天哪，味同嚼蜡一般啊！整个这个叫什么 NVIDIA 的发布会还是很顺畅啊。沃什8月28日，好吧，本周五上午10点演讲啊，那个正好那就是9点半开盘，半个小时以后就演讲啊，我们就全程直播了，好吧？欢迎到时候过来参加啊！欢迎各位到时候参加，哎，大家一起来听，好吧？现在来看，今天还是不错的，219就是220吧。看来今天过不了220，看看今天盘前会怎么样吧？好吧，谢谢各位啊，感谢各位参加本次直播。哎，咱们晚点见啊！北京时间今天晚上咱们继续播，好吧？我希望看到不会加息，我觉得不会加的，还加呀？我觉得不会啊。再讲两句。那个韩国现在，我的天哪，它要降温啊，这怎么可能加呀？啊，它要降温啊，它现在属于夹在两难之中，还是蛮难受的。达子英伟达这一波应该是比较强。对，海公公当然不错了，那是海公公当然不错了，好可惜啊，我在130没等到啊，等到了135，哎呀，不错，今天这个还是数据很理想啊，我们看一看啊，我们看看达子的数据，各方面都是大超预期。今天我就会出一期分析视频，欢迎各位到时候关注和参加，好吧？然后的话，我看看这个2季度的营收962.2亿啊，然后呢，预计是922.9亿，同比增长106%，好吧？ EPS 2.22，预计2.09，然后数据中心同比增长117%，毛利率75%。更重要的是，3季度指引现在已经奔到1000多少啊？3季度指引1080亿啊，1080亿，我记错了，还不是1062，是1080，正负2%。哇，下季度正式破1000亿啊，高于华尔街普遍预期的1042亿。很给力，太猛了 ！Ravi Rubin 已经开始出货了，而且3季度指引高于市场共识。2028财年营收增长70%，远高于市场预期的45%，好吧？2028年2028财年营收增长70%，仍然是巨大的增量市场，是不是啊？从哪看出来人家的这个叫什么？人工智能是一个有泡沫的市场，继续非常强劲。对吧，朋友们？所以说完全不必担心啊，达子今年会给我们更大的惊喜的。我估计达子今年到250应该是没有什么问题的，250完全可以啊。 哎呀，希望达的能冲到250。对，它的估值sorry， 我不能太那个啥。是的，它的那个叫什么，确实不算高，是属于中等偏下水平，比较健康。哦，它的远期 TTM 也才多少？我看啊，现在是多少倍？TTM 远期是32倍啊，非常健康，应该说。200以下恐怕有点难，这个确实有点难啊，朋友，200以下有点难，哎，不要想太多啊。来，欢迎大家，我们在本周五的晚上，好吧？本周五晚上啊，来播联储主席沃什在银行行长会议上的首次公开演讲啊，到时候大家一起来听，好吧？时间其实还比较不错了，是各位周五晚上的10点啊，这个对我们来说是一个比较好的时间点。难啊，比较难，不好等啊。哎，200以下那肯定可以入啊，多好的机会，是不是啊，朋友们？好了，我们今天就到这儿了，各位，谢谢感谢啊，感谢各位参加今天的直播，咱们明天各位的对吧？今天晚上见啊，拜拜，谢谢大家，再见，拜拜。